The elevator doors opened with a cold metallic hiss, and every step she took echoed through the marble corridor like the sound of judgment. The secretary at the desk froze mid-sentence, her eyes traveling up and down the trembling young woman who stood clutching a crumpled envelope. Her clothes were plain, her shoes were worn, but it wasn't the fabric that made people look twice. It was her size, her broad shoulders, the fullness of her frame, the way her heavy footsteps seemed to shake the quiet hallway. But behind those eyes, those deep, storm-gray eyes, there was something fierce, courage wrapped in fear, love burning through shame. Her name was Maya Patel, and she had come to settle her late father's debt to the most powerful man in the city. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more emotional stories like this to life. Maya's heart thudded painfully as she reached the door marked Arjun Mehra, CEO. She had imagined this moment for weeks. How she would stand tall, how she would speak clearly, but now her knees threatened to give way. Her father, once a proud mechanic, had taken a loan from this very man to save their small repair shop. When illness struck, the shop closed, the bills mounted, and when he passed, the weight of his mistakes fell squarely on Maya's shoulders. She wasn't here for forgiveness. She wasn't here for pity. She was here to repay what her father owed, even if it meant giving up every rupee she had saved. The door opened with a quiet creak, revealing a man whose presence filled the room like a thundercloud. Arjun Mehra, young, sharply dressed, expression unreadable. His reputation was the stuff of legends and fear. He built his empire from the ground up, never missed a payment, and never forgave one either. His eyes flicked toward her, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, without a word, he gestured for her to come in. The office was all glass and chrome, cold and pristine. Maya's reflection stared back at her from every direction, reminding her of the body she had always been told to hide. She swallowed hard and handed him the envelope. Inside, every last rupee she had saved over the past 3 years, working at a bakery from dawn till midnight. Her hands shook as she said softly that she had come to pay what her father owed. But Arjun didn't even look at the envelope. He leaned back, eyes narrowing slightly as if studying her, not with cruelty, but curiosity. "You came here to pay a man who's no longer waiting for payment," he said, his voice calm but distant. Maya frowned, confused. He explained that the loan was written off months ago, after her father's death. She didn't owe him anything. Yet Maya refused to leave. Her father had raised her to keep her word. Her voice broke as she said she could not live peacefully knowing her father's debt still haunted her name. "Please," she whispered, "I can't let it end like this." Something in her tone, an unshakable mix of pain and dignity, made Arjun's heart still. Most people who stood in front of him wanted something. This woman wanted nothing but to right a wrong she never caused. And yet, when he looked at her trembling hands, the quiet defiance in her eyes, he saw someone the world had tried to break but failed to. Finally, he said the words that would change both their lives. "You owe me nothing," he murmured, his voice softer now, "except dinner, with me, tonight." Maya thought she misheard him. A man like Arjun, with his spotless suits and flawless reputation, dining with her, a woman who barely made enough to eat twice a day? It made no sense. But Arjun's gaze was steady, and something about it, calm, assured, left no room for protest. That evening, she arrived at a quiet rooftop restaurant. The view was breathtaking, the city below glittering like spilled diamonds. Maya wore her best dress, a faded blue one that still carried the scent of bakery sugar. She sat across from him, uneasy, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of the napkin. The world around them whispered with judgment, waiters glancing curiously, diners pausing mid-bite. But Arjun didn't seem to notice. He asked her about her father, about the bakery, about the dreams she once had before life became about survival. Slowly her guard began to lower. She spoke about her father's laughter, her mother's passing, the nights she stayed up baking bread to sell by dawn. She laughed once, awkwardly, when he asked what she wanted for herself. "I'm too big for dreams," she said under her breath. Arjun's expression changed. "No one is too big for dreams," he replied quietly. "Only the world too small to hold them." That line would echo in Maya's heart for months to come. Over time, what began as an act of gratitude turned into something she never expected, a friendship. Arjun found himself drawn to her strength, the quiet kindness in her gestures, the way she treated everyone, from janitors to executives, with equal respect. For the first time in years, he felt seen not as a billionaire, but as a man. And Maya, who had spent her life apologizing for her existence, began to see herself through his eyes, as someone who mattered. Still, the world was not kind. Rumors began to spread in his company. A woman like her dining with a man like him? Whispers turned into laughter, laughter into headlines. Maya, mortified, withdrew. She stopped answering his calls, left her job, and disappeared. Arjun tried to find her, but she had vanished into the city's endless noise. Months passed. He focused on work, on expansion, but nothing filled the silence she left behind. He had everything: money, power, respect. But every night when he looked out from his penthouse window, all he could think about was a girl in a faded blue dress who had taught him that compassion was more valuable than gold. Then one stormy evening, fate decided to intervene. Arjun's car broke down near a small bakery on the outskirts of town. He stepped out, frustrated, rain soaking through his suit. The smell of freshly baked bread drifted from inside, and he walked toward it, hoping for shelter. As he stepped in, his heart stopped. There she was, Maya, wearing an apron dusted with flour, serving customers with the same gentle smile he remembered. She froze when she saw him. For a moment neither spoke. Then Arjun quietly said, "You finally opened your own bakery." Maya nodded, tears glistening. She told him she had saved for years, found a cheap shop, and decided to start again. "It's small," she said, "but it's mine." She hesitated before adding, "I didn't want to bring you more trouble." Arjun shook his head. "You never were trouble, Maya. You were the one thing that made sense." Rain hammered against the window as they stood there, silence heavy with all the words left unspoken. Finally, Arjun reached into his coat and pulled out a small piece of paper. It was a business proposal, one that would make her bakery the official supplier for his company's cafe chain. But more than that, it was his way of saying he believed in her. Maya tried to refuse, but Arjun's eyes held that same steady warmth from their first dinner. "You once paid your father's debt," he said. "Now let me repay mine." Weeks passed, and the bakery began to thrive. Arjun visited often, sometimes under the pretense of business, sometimes just to see her laugh. The city's gossip slowly faded, replaced by admiration for the woman who had turned loss into legacy. But what truly changed everything was the day Arjun invited her to a charity gala. Maya hesitated, afraid of the same whispers. Yet when they entered together, hand in hand, the room fell silent. For the first time, Maya didn't feel small or ashamed. She felt proud, because standing beside her was not just a man of power, but a man who saw her heart before her size. As the night went on, Arjun gave a speech about integrity, compassion, and courage. But near the end, he looked directly at Maya and said, "Sometimes, we think debts are about money, but the biggest debts are the ones of the soul, the ones we repay through love, patience, and kindness. She taught me that." The audience erupted into applause, but Maya could only stand there, tears spilling down her cheeks. That night, as they danced under the soft glow of chandeliers, she finally understood. She was never too big for dreams. She was made for them. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Every small gesture helps keep stories of hope and kindness alive. And before this story ends, I have a special request for you. Comment below, what would you have done if you were in Maya's place? Would you still have gone to pay your father's debt? Months later, the bakery's name, Second Chances, became known throughout the city. People came not just for the bread, but for the story behind it. A girl who refused to be defined by her weight or her pain, and a man who learned that true wealth lies not in what we own, but in whom we understand. Every morning, as sunlight poured through the bakery windows, Maya smiled at the sight of Arjun waiting at his usual table, reading the newspaper, pretending not to watch her. Life wasn't perfect, but it was real, and for both of them, it was more than enough. Because sometimes, the greatest debts in life aren't meant to be paid with money. They're meant to be paid with love.